Good morning, beloved ones. I feel compelled to talk about inauthentic, flowery, new age bullshit. I've had some lovely conversations with friends, dear friends, and I love and cherish these conversations because it shows me such a distinct difference in authentic understanding and the deceptions that still exist in this world. Because even when those who entered the path of the light turn and look for others who are on the path and to celebrate that journey and that path in various forms, through creative outlets or through writings or through speeches. So much of what is being presented in the outer world today is still extremely inauthentic bullshit. And the levels of deception that are still prevalent in these circles of so-called spirituality or universal understanding or religion of various sorts is still tremendous. This deception is still so present, and it's probably even more so. This is one of the reasons why I've actually left all spiritual activities and do not involve myself in these circles of individuals, because there's still so much delusion. And it's even greater amongst these people than I think it is the average public, which is actually why I chose to marry just a completely ordinary individual. And the reason why I speak of these things on these terms or from this perspective is because I have had the privilege of being in the presence of someone who was 100% authentic. But I also want to convey is that his expression of authenticity is not going to be the only expression of authenticity. I recognize that. But there's something in true understanding of these principles that underlie our very existence, our very beings, our very purpose, and our very destiny as children of God. And that is, there are fundamental aspects that one who is authentic will never deviate from. And I have seen that. I have tasted it. I understand a great deal of this. That any individual who has never walked, talked, or sat in the presence of someone who could heal another by mere touch, wave their hand, and manipulate the universe about them, as Jesus did, to prove and demonstrate their authenticity. If you have not been amongst those who can do that, then you might want to understand someone like myself who is trying to say there is a complete veil of inauthenticity drawn amongst this whole, or so much of outer world's spiritual movement or understanding. Maybe you might want to listen to what someone like myself is saying, just to listen. Because I am not going to give you a bunch of flowery bullshit. But that is what mankind seems to want. They seem to want all kinds of spiritual explanations about this, that, and the other thing. About, the coming golden ages and what it's going to mean. And, thinking that there's a person here that's visiting from another planet, or taking over, some other person is taking over the body of another person and is now speaking. It's all bullshit. It's all a deception. The path to understanding is so fine of a thread to walk. The path to shatter delusion is such a fine thread to walk. It is so easy to be taken by these individuals. I have yet to find one that is completely authentic. I have listened to so many videos. I have listened to various speakers. The only two people I know to be 100% authentic in their understanding and their demonstration of things was Sai Baba, who has passed from this world now, and I believe Sadhguru to have a certain level of understanding, but I believe he has plateaued now and he will not advance any further because of how he's interacting with the world. Because what I think students of the light do not understand is that the thing that they think they want, which is the ascension, or to become like Jesus, ultimately, right? I mean, if we're not desiring that, then what are we desiring? But what I'm trying to say is to attain that consciousness, to be able to be given the stewardship of those powers again, is no small matter. And the level of purity and humility one has to maintain to be entrusted by life with those powers again is well beyond the understanding of most of mankind, especially those that become deluded with the level of spirituality that is being presented today. I actually have a higher hope for those who have never touched an ounce of spiritual understanding, because they are not deluded. I mean, they are deluded by, or entrapped, I should say, by societal things, but so are those that are seeking the spiritual realm. But then there's an extra layer of bullshit now that they got to cut through. So I'm grateful to have people in my life that have conversations with me about this, that are touching these things out there, But I am even more grateful about my decision to cut myself away from all of it. To not get involved in any spiritual movement, in any kind of spiritual group. Because to remain insulated and pure from all of that is a guarantee that you will have the highest hope in this embodiment. To walk a path in the light is an extremely lonely decision. At least at this juncture. Because to anchor in the absolute purity of the stillness that is required to walk that path requires isolation from so much of the outer world bullshit. At this juncture, there is no other way. To raise one's frequency into true understanding of what it means to even become an ascended master, to even have the simple powers of manifestation given into your use again, requires extreme discipline and understanding of the power of silence. There is a reason why the greatest mystics and teachers on this planet have self-isolated, have left everything they knew and gone off to caves or left their countries and families behind. Because it is the only way. In order to progress past a certain point. It's the only way. You have to go so deep in the silence for years. So the reason why I talk about these things is because, like I said, I had the privilege of sitting in the presence of somebody who was 100% authentic on this path. He was once again entrusted with these powers that we can only dream of. And he would never in his life utter some of the things that I see present in today's spirituality. The deceptions that are so prevalent right now are in complete contradiction to the goals some of these sincere individuals hope to attain in their life. You cannot sit on a stage and give a mankind a bunch of flowery information to sell talismans to wear around your neck, to sell bottled essences of this, that, or the other thing, and ever hope to attain any level, or I should say, to have any level of actual attainment. Life will not entrust you to those who do that. Life will not entrust those who make those decisions to deceive mankind on those levels with any kind of validation. To have the power to actually heal people, to have the power to actually manifest things, requires a level of humility that most of mankind cannot even fathom. And the reason why I'm speaking so fiery about this thing, because I feel the fire in me rise from beyond to do this. Because I have walked so many different avenues in my life. I have tasted so much, that which is authentic and that which is not. And there is only 2 avenues of instruction that I would ever steer anybody into that I know to be completely authentic. There's only 3 avenues of authenticity that I am fully aware of, and that is to, number 1, find an individual who is 100% authentic. Number 2, the Course in Miracles. And number 3, the I Am activity as given by Saint Germain. Those are the only 3 authentic activities I know that exist 100% on this planet. And in order to find a teacher of 100% authenticity requires an individual to be of a desire and a sincerity of 100% authenticity themselves. You will never come into the presence of such an individual or to be graced to see power demonstrated, authentic demonstration of these things, if you yourself are not authentic. I say these things so that each and every one can search within themselves and to root out any underlying human aspects that need to be shattered and dissolved if what they truly desire is to know the truth of life without the human distortion, without the human flowery concepts. Life is trying so hard to get the truth through to its children. But free will is the paramount rule of existence, and it cannot just shove all this down the throats of the children. In order to become a full representative of your creative potential requires the use of the fundamental, paramount activity and principle of the universe, which is free will. It requires us to use that to a degree that guarantees we understand what it means. It guarantees we will never misuse it. This is how life knows we are ready. To these individuals, it will become entrusted again to have stewardship of authentic power And this power is love made manifest on a level humanity can't even comprehend. It is a humility, it is a reverence, and it is a dedication to no longer being led astray or to lead others astray. I want to explain one other thing that you may or may not have heard it put quite this way before. You know, there's so much ancient texts or even religious understanding or spiritual understanding of various sorts. We have the concept of the oneness of life. We have been given this concept and probably heard this concept about the oneness of life. And some of us on our spiritual path have come to know about the importance of purity. And we've also come to know about the power of positive thought instead of negative thought. We may have even come to understand the power of silence and discipline. I want to wrap some of this up into a tidy little nutshell. Is that the right way to put it? Because this is how I measure the level of distraction that I see in the world, whether it's from average humanity or those who purport to be of a spiritual nature, whether they're a teacher or a student of spiritual disciplines or whatever. This is how I gauge the understanding of individuals and things as a whole. In my time with my teacher, the method in which I pierced the veil and touched the divine in his presence was by a stillness of the mind and thought that was so completely laser focused that it touched the concept of oneness to the degree that it allowed a breakthrough. And by that I mean this. Every feeling, every sensation, every activity of the mind and the body, the thinking processes, your entire consciousness of the world, from hearing, tasting, seeing, thinking, and every bit of sensory input has to be honed into a laser-like oneness. In a state of meditation, in a state of silence, in a state of stillness, in order to pierce the veil. It is a prerequisite. The only other manner this happens is occasionally people experience this when they have traumatic injury. And they're on the verge of going through what the outer world calls a change called death. And there is no death. But when those individuals go through a traumatic experience that nearly casts them out of the body, that is one of the few times in their life that their minds and their emotional bodies and everything reaches that level of stillness in order to have a spiritual experience. But I promise you, that is a pathetic, secondary decision or choice to have versus doing it consciously. That is life literally giving these individuals an extreme last chance to awaken in this embodiment when they have those experiences on the verge called death. But to do it consciously requires tremendous effort. And tremendous willpower. Because you have to do it for weeks and maybe months to hone the mind and the feelings into a level of stillness in order to take one's attention like a laser of oneness is not an easy feat. But that is what life requires in order to see truly what lies beyond and to feel it to the depth of your being requires that stillness and dedication to pull that off. And I know this because that is what I did in the presence of my authentic teacher. And I stress the word authentic because he was one who could demonstrate his authenticity. And I'm quite sure it was me sitting in his presence and his radiation that allowed me to break through the way I did. However, I feel that the use of psilocybin can bring me very close to the edge of that doorway that I experienced in his presence with weeks and months of discipline. I am going to preface this by saying that it could be because of my discipline that I find psilocybin able to do this for me in particular, to walk me back so close to that doorway. It still requires discipline on my end to step through, to see, to hear, and to feel what I feel. But I think there is a certain blessing that psilocybin has to offer on these levels for the average human being who may lack some of this pre-existing discipline and control of their will. But the main reason why I speak so highly of psilocybin is because my experience with it is that it takes me into the depths of that stillness and silence on demand that often would take me days or weeks to attain. in the past. But again, that might just be from my experience, my history. I really don't know, obviously, what other people are experiencing. But I think individuals, once they get through the aspect of using psilocybin to treat their traumas, to treat their deficiencies of whatever they may be in their life, when they reach a point where they no longer have the average human deficiencies, that there's a whole nother level for the use of psilocybin. And that is what I'm really speaking about. Using psilocybin to reach the depths of stillness and silence, like a chemically induced meditation of extreme power and potency. And then one's previous or existing disciplines of using the willpower and laser-like focus of their attention can easily pierce the veil and feel the power that is in themselves, the sun presence that is themselves, and to have access to functional knowledge and wisdom and guidance. And by functional, I'm not talking about fairy tale shit. I'm talking about understanding and disciplines that is useful and relevant to their current embodiment to help them graduate. Because to me, everything else is a distraction. I have never met a person of authenticity that would ever go off into some flowery explanation of different dimensions or different worlds, because it's utterly ridiculous to do so. It has no bearing on the purpose of why we are here. We are here to fucking graduate from this classroom. And the reason why we have been coming back for hundreds and sometimes thousands of embodiments is because we have been fucking distracted from doing the one thing life requires. And that is to have humility and purity in a single embodiment of substantial duration. To prevent oneself from being distracted and deluded by all the bullshit going on around them. That's all it takes, is one embodiment to break the cycle of having this fleshy existence that is fraught with disease and lack and limitation and shadow. Do you see what I'm saying? Mankind thinks that their entertainments, that's satisfying their physical needs with delicious food, watching sports, entertaining themselves with music and hobbies and family events and Disneyland and novels and TV and every last fucking thing is the reason we are still stuck in a cycle of endless fucking embodiments. People, we have been repeating kindergarten for so long. And that's what I'm trying to say in this recording, that even those in this world who are out there talking about beautiful spiritual things and this and that dimension and higher frequencies coming and all these flowery shit, it's still a distraction. It still will hold you in embodiment. Just look to those that have made attainment and what they did. They didn't do this stuff. They strived to teach us. But this is why there are so few who actually achieve attainment in their life. It is such a fine thread to walk. The focus and attention has to be so laser-like. So I hope you will please forgive the strength of my outburst in this recording, but I don't know. Sometimes it's frustrating to see the ones you love, not see things the same way you see them. But it's okay. It's been going on a very long time. For all of us. Even if we don't make it in this embodiment, we'll make it in another. There's no real way to define or to convey the mindset and the feeling of the individual who authentically knows what they're talking about. Such as Jesus, such as my teacher, or anyone of authentic attainment. They attempt to do so with the words of the period in which they embody. But as we know, words are mere cups for feeling. Feeling something is knowing that thing. And the only way to know the divine is to feel it while deep in the silence. Going deep into the silence is the only way to attain purity of thought and stillness of being enough to not pollute the actual purity and perfection of divine consciousness. And in order to really, deeply understand and achieve attainment, requires an individual to forget their humanity entirely. In order to have a laser-like oneness of your attention that never wanders for the duration required to pierce the veil, one must forget their entire humanity. Just think about what that means, or when I'm trying to convey what it means. That means you forget all your human desires. even those that you think are good, like teaching others or raising a great family or being a good husband or wife. Forgetting your humanity means forgetting all of that. Forgetting about what clothes to wear. Forgetting about the need for food or certain drink or nutrition at all. Forgetting your humanity means forgetting you need to go to the bank or go to work on Monday or to do anything in this world to fulfill any obligation. Because the one common feature of all those things is the recognition that you are not yet divine. The reason I share this is because I know this to be the case for my teacher. Not because he told me. Because in the unspoken transmissions between us, I know this to be the case. That is how he went from a car salesman in Virginia to the point where he was fulfilling exactly what Jesus said would happen, which is that those would do things that he is doing and potentially greater things than he. That when one is ready to graduate and one is done with the bullshit of this world, in a single embodiment, you can go from a used car salesman to Jesus, to actually doing the things that Jesus did. If one has sufficient willpower and desire to cut themselves free from all the distraction and temptations and bullshit of this world. But it is not as easy as you may think. Because to forget one's humanity is a tremendous step. I've spoken about this before in my other recordings. It is a tremendous step. Even sitting there in the presence of my teacher, seeing and witnessing his power of authenticity before my very eyes, I was presented on the inner with a choice. I was shown what was required to go to the next step, to become like my teacher, to become like Jesus. And I couldn't do it because I was shown the level of commitment and strength required to do it. And I didn't think I could do it. At least not at that moment. I was 20 years old. Now I am 48. I've had all this time to sit with that decision, to sit with the things I was shown, to sit with the knowledge of what is required to graduate from the schoolroom, and to come to terms with that slowly over the last 2.5 decades, to build up enough strength. And God knows I've been involved in enough distraction between then and now to know what the hell I'm talking about. I know of the strength and determination that is required to graduate, and I know the power and the magnetic feeling of the distraction of this world. I have watched closely how humanity operates from a level of comprehension and observation that most do not have. I'm not saying that with any sense of pride, because how can I really be prideful in not having the strength to fulfill my entire purpose of existence at that time? I'm sharing these words because I feel absolute humility in my understanding of the requirements, and my love and in trying to convey these to others. You know, it's okay if we don't all have the strength to fulfill these requirements. I mean, we've obviously haven't had this strength for many lifetimes in the past. We have all been through previous golden ages on this planet. We have all lived through very high and very low times in this classroom. And it doesn't matter what's coming ahead. We've been there before. And we fucked up just as much as we fucked up now. Just think about that. We have all lived and participated and helped build previous golden ages on this planet. And we still were not able to graduate, even in those times. We still have to repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat kindergarten. Because the consciousness of humanity is stuck in kindergarten. At least right now. It is silence and dedication to the silence, to the stillness of the body, the stillness of the needs of the body, the stillness of all outer world desires, whether they seem good and flowery and spiritual or just common everyday human experience. Still it all. Only in the stillness will we be taught power of what we are, the sun presence that is our being. And doing away with every human concept. Every single one. That is what the laser-like focus of the attention to achieve the oneness and a breakthrough of the veil, to see for yourself, requires. The stillness, the single-minded focus of the mind on a single aspect of divinity is what is required. And this is why I keep saying that even all the spiritual floweriness that is being presented out there is still a distraction. Because it's still an obstacle to the single-mindedness of the attention that has to be attained to actually know and become a representative of divinity. Every last thing in our cup has to be poured out in order for the elixir of the divine to be poured into our cup. Every last human concept. Because they're all imperfect. Anything that the human is capable of understanding about the divine is imperfect. And therefore has to be removed. There is no other way. Our life is a chalice, and we have filled our chalice with erroneous concepts. We must pour out those erroneous concepts, empty ourselves in absolute humility and purity of desiring the truth, in order for the truth to find us worthy enough to fill us. It's a mathematical requirement. Life is extremely mathematical. And as I've said before in other videos, all this divine knowledge is locked by frequency. Our frequency, which is determined by our humility and purity of desire to know the truth and be ready for the truth and make ourselves ready for the truth, is the only way to unlock the door. The reason why all these great teachers have come to us in the ages and spoken in such eloquent simplicity about certain laws of life is because they were trying to get us to distill our existence into as extreme simplicity as possible. Because complexity is a disease. The complexity of the human experience is an absolute disease. And the more we try to add to that complexity, no matter what it is, we have to understand that all concepts that we will encounter about life in this embodiment are erroneous to a degree. There's limitations to what we can comprehend because of the density of the frequency that is here. But all human concepts, whether they just be average things or spiritual things or whatever it is erroneous and is in the way, and it adds additional complexity to our minds and to our feelings, having to juggle all this stuff, all this information, which needlessly fills our chalice with more garbage that has to be poured out. So the entire goal of spiritual disciplines and spiritual teachers and great masters is they come and they try to simplify and distill the important aspects that we should hold in our minds, simple laws, simple behaviors. Obey the golden rule. The golden rule is a simple enough principle to govern all universal conduct. You literally need nothing else but to follow the golden rule. It can rule the entire planet. And this is what I mean. The simplicity of removing a majority of these unnecessary teachings and thought patterns and human concepts from our existence is paramount, because it's easier to make the leap with the less amount of shit in our heads. It's easier and quicker and more potent to touch the divine with the less clutter we have in our way. And this is why I have endeavored to remove myself from all of this stuff. Because I know this in my being to be the truth. I have witnessed this truth in authentic manner in others of masterful attainment. And therefore, it is the only thing I am going to convey from now to the rest of my embodiment on any of my recordings, is to stress this. And the only reason why I'm bringing psilocybin into this picture is because my experience of it is that it's a chemical substance that helps you reach into the depths of that silence, a chemical-induced meditation. It stills the body and all the needs of the body, which again are interference to touching the divine. And all of this in my book leads you to a place where you can resonate at a higher frequency for a longer duration when things are done properly. And by resonating and staying in a state of higher frequency, it starts to become your natural resonance, permanent resonance. It becomes your new baseline. And from that baseline, you can move up to the next baseline. It's like walking up rungs of a ladder. That's the way I'm experiencing it. And for me, as I conveyed earlier, about not being ready at the time to accept the intensity of the requirement that my teacher represented at the time. This is my process of building up and walking up those rungs, where that decision, when presented to me again, I will be able to unequivocally say yes. I am ready. I will be ready the next time life finds me worthy. I do hope some of these recordings have meaning and purpose and assistance to others. I know this kind of talk and communication is very niche. There's very few individuals who are really, I think, ready to hear this kind of information and communication. There's many that are close, but they're still quite happy with, human distractions that exist. I know I have been. I still get distracted by this so-called artwork and, other projects I find myself getting mixed up in. But I also see very clearly that there's going to be a time when I will be ready to walk away from all of this with a feeling of great pleasure instead of a feeling like I might be missing something. Because really, that's what it is, right? The only reason why we have not made these decisions before in previous embodiments is because we felt like we'd either be missing out on something, or we felt like there was more importance of something in the human experience that we wanted to do that was greater than graduating. And that's why it takes a lot of attention, a lot of focus, a lot of introspection, I should say. Really, it's introspection, is to really look at each activity we are involved in life and see it for what it is. Just honestly, see it for what it is. What's it doing for us? What's it doing for others? Is it benefiting any other part of life? Really? Because our human concept of benefiting others is probably quite different than the divine perspective on the thing that we are doing. But that's what we must endeavor to do, is think about it from the highest, most divinest perspective that we can possibly consider it at. That's all we can do, is take the purest form of our understanding of what the divine requirements are in life and measure everything that we do in life up to that. And that's where the power comes from, when one is capable of distilling the essence of the teachings from great teachers that have come, or the Course in Miracles or the books of the I Am, and try to distill in there what are they really wanting us to do with our life. And using that as a measuring tool, because I will tell you, there is a consistency in all of it. because the divine aspects of life are eternally consistent. It is that consistency of the divine which holds the entire fabric of the universe together. There is no chaos, because all chaos just emanates from the minds of humanity that are filled with too many competing concepts, too many competing erroneous concepts, which is all of them. That's what makes it simple. Every concept we have in our minds, every single one, 100% is erroneous to a degree. Even the greatest things we know about life are somewhat erroneous. And that's what makes it easy to drop it all in the end and have a laser-like focus on the singular concept of the absolute oneness of existence. The singularity is a power of potency that is unparalleled. The potency of our consciousness put into a laser-like attention on the oneness of divinity is unmatched by any other human concept in its potential to allow one to pierce the veil. There's been so many Eastern philosophy teachers who have talked about emptying the mind, becoming completely empty. Right? We've all heard it. In some ancient teaching, some master of a previous age, because there is truth to that. They knew the power of emptying your chalice. By doing so, they gained everything. That's the interesting thing about how the divine works, is that it's so opposite to our entire way we use our consciousness on this planet. Right now, we use our consciousness in like a struggle to learn this and learn that, whether it be a language, whether it be some discipline, whether it be some job, we strive to learn by reading or listening to words or this or that. It's like a striving to shove stuff into a jar, so to speak, when the exact opposite is how divinity works, is by maintaining a completely empty vessel. It allows the entire wisdom and knowledge of the universe to be at your disposal. It's kind of paradoxical. But again, that's what has made attainment and mastery and graduation from this classroom so challenging. Because the temptations to try to learn or listen to or read someone else's human concepts, even about the divine, adds more clutter. So Guess I'm going to sign off for this recording. Take everything I've said with a grain of salt. Even if it resonates, consider it. Weigh it upon the scale of your heart. Test it out. But don't even believe what I'm saying. Only going into the stillness for a long enough duration will ever reveal the absolute truth of the matter. Bless you all.